Am I the asshole for complaining after I asked to join my husband on his business trip? My husband and I hadn't been spending much time together even though we've only been married 4 months. I asked him if I could join him on his business trip. It took some convincing because he thought I would be bored the whole time. But he eventually agreed. He was supposed to be in Berlin for a week, but it somehow turned into him going to 5 different countries in 9 days. It was awful and I was severely jet-lagged the entire time, so I felt like crap. I don't know how he and everybody else was coping with the travel, but I told him I wanted to go home because I couldn't keep up with his schedule. After a lot of arguing, he did eventually slow the pace down and we went home earlier than he would have liked, even though I told him I could go home by myself. During the argument he said I shouldn't complain because I invited myself along and he was trying to get all of this work out of the way for me. He has to go on another trip in a few days and he told me I couldn't go because of what happened last time, even though I wasn't planning to ask. Was I the asshole? OMG. You can't honestly believe you're in the right in any way. 1. You invite yourself on his business trip. 2. Complain the whole time. 3. Husband tries to accommodate. 4. You still complain. You're the asshole. You're the asshole. You're the asshole. You're the asshole. Dude is trying to work. He told you that you wouldn't enjoy yourself. But you just couldn't leave well enough alone and cost him, and therefore yourself, time and money. You're the asshole. This is 100 on you. You begged to go. He let you. You caused issues. Pretty open and shut case here. Hopefully him cutting the trip short didn't cost him any business or money. Because emo. That's on you too. You're the asshole. You demanded to go on this trip and then just complained. He was there to work and you were just making that harder. You're the asshole. Work trips aren't vacations. Your husband needs to work. What did you do while he was working? Just lounge around the hotel? Then asked him to slow down the trip? You're the asshole. Business trips are for business reasons, not vacations. Sorry op. You're the asshole. It is a business trip. I understand you want to spend time with your new husband. But business trips are for work, not leisure. You probably made this all the more stressful for him dealing with work. Trying to finish everything up, and on top of it, you were complaining and wanting to go home. I wouldn't want you to go on my next business trip after seeing what had happened last time. Fearful of that repeating itself. Of course you're the asshole. He's obviously not. He had a business trip. You insisted on going, then became insufferable on the trip. You're the asshole. He warned you and you went, had no right to complain. You're the asshole. Guess what? Your husband was working. It wasn't the time for togetherness. I am glad that you will now know that business trips aren't party time, but grueling and tiring work. You're the asshole. Not only did you waste his time, you wasted his money too. You could have also kept yourself entertained. Your husband didn't have to be with you 24/7 in the trip. You could have gone sightseeing, food tasting, or whatever it's called. Saw a movie, IDK, anything. YTA, it was a business trip where he needed to work. You insisted, you came along and ruined it. You're obviously never going to be allowed to come again because he can't risk you ruining it again. Tell him you need to spend more time together and designate some free time to each other. I think you were definitely and I think you need to find more purpose in your life. Just waiting for this man to come home or following him around like a homeless puppy are not quality options for you. Get a job, get a career, get a hobby, have a life of your own. Stop being so dependent, financially and emotionally. You and everybody else should know. You're the asshole. You can't make demands on his schedule for a business trip you weren't even invited on. You're the asshole. You invited yourself on your husband's business trip. He tried to warn you, but you insisted on coming, and he had to cut his trip short as a result of your complaining. If you are tagging along on a business trip, you have to follow his schedule. You're the asshole. He knew you wouldn't like it and told you so. It took some convincing because he thought I would be bored the whole time. But he eventually agreed. You go along then complain. This is something a 7-year-old does. You're the asshole. You invited yourself on the trip and realized it wasn't fun because it was work? It's a work trip. Your husband is meant to be busy working. You're the asshole. Unless your husband somehow tricked you, you should have been aware that this was a work trip, not a pleasure trip. You're not going to have fun or see sights. He was going to work. You're the asshole. He was gone for business and you made it harder for him to do said business. It wasn't a vacation. Come on, of course you're the asshole. How do you even need to ask? You're the asshole. If you demanded to go on this trip, you should have sucked it up. You're an adult. Stop whining. You're the asshole. Business trips are called business trips for a reason. It's not all fun times and relaxing. You know better now not to ask again. You're the asshole. It was work, not a holiday. Imagine your husband doing this for a living, just trying to get through the days as quickly as possible just to get back home. At least now you know how his trips go. You're the asshole. F around and find out. You're the asshole. During the argument he said I shouldn't complain because I invited myself along and he was trying to get all of this work out of the way for me. Correct. Oh yeah, you're the asshole. You invited yourself on his business trip and then made it even more miserable for him with your complaining. Do you really need to ask us? You're the asshole. You convinced him. He eventually agreed. You complained. Jet lagged? With no obligations, take care of yourself. You added another layer of stress to how he earns a living. You're the asshole. I tag along with my husband to business trips and conferences a couple times a year if he is going to be in a city I've wanted to visit. But I respect his schedule. I find ways to entertain myself by exploring the city, and if he requests my presence at something like a dinner, I gladly oblige. He's my partner and I understand that the travel is part of his job and entertaining me is secondary. I'm happy when I get to see him on the trip, but I don't get in the way of his doing what he needs to do, and I certainly don't make demands to leave. Edit spelling. You're the asshole. You begged and pleaded to go on a business trip. Business trips aren't fun and they're definitely not vacation. You should apologize to him for your behavior. You're the asshole. Did you expect his business trip to be fun and calm? That's not a business trip. It's a vacation. You're the asshole. Not for blagging your way onto a free trip around Europe. I'm European, and I'd be delighted with that opportunity, but for not managing your jet lag and expectations. Presumably he was in meetings all day, so you could have had the time of your life. If you didn't, and spent it failing to sleep your way out of jet lag in what were probably quite nice hotels in central locations before making your husband edit his trip, then you're the asshole. You're the asshole. It wasn't a couple's vacation. It was you crashing his work trip and complaining it wasn't what you wanted. Don't go if you're going to complain about his work schedule. You're the asshole. What? Did you think he was going to be drinking beer in Germany all day? Poor you for inviting yourself on a business trip and then getting upset when you discover that business trips entail conducting business. The fact that you made him cut short his business trip after you invited yourself is infuriating. If you were my I'd rip you a new one. Good Lord. You need to get a grip.